If the girls had been lucky, this had happened before the rapes. Looking at that made it hard for a man to think, even a man as determined to do his job as Deputy McGee was. Bad thinking could cause mistakes, maybe more bloodshed. McGee drew him in a deep breath and calmed himself. Tried, anyway. Well, sire, I don't exactly remember, be dog if I do, Coffee said in his tear-choked voice, but it's a little lunch, all right, sandwiches and I think a sweet pickle. I might just have a look for myself, it's all the same to you, McGee said. Don't you move now, John Coffey. Don't do it, boy, because there are enough guns aimed at you to make you disappear from the waist up should you so much as twitch a finger. Coffey looked out across the river and didn't move as McGee gently reached into the chest pocket of those bibballs and pulled out something wrapped in newspaper and tied with a hank of butcher's twine. McGee snapped the string and opened the paper, although he was pretty sure it was just what Coffey said it was, a little lunch. There was a bacon tomato sandwich and a jelly fold-over. There was also a pickle, wrapped in its own piece of a funny page John Coffey would never be able to puzzle out. There were no sausages. Bowser had gotten the sausages out of John Coffey's little lunch. McGee handed the lunch back over his shoulder to one of the other men without taking his eyes off Coffey. Hunkered down like that, he was too close to want to let his attention stray for even a second. The lunch, wrapped up again and tied for good measure, finally ended up with Bobo Marchant, who put it in his knapsack, where he kept treats for his dogs, and a few fishing lures, I shouldn't wonder. It wasn't introduced into evidence at the trial. Justice in this part of the world is swift, but not as swift as a bacon tomato sandwich goes over, though photographs of it were. What happened here, John Coffey? McGee asked in his low, earnest voice. You want to tell me that? And Coffey said to McGee and the others almost exactly the same thing he said to me. They were also the last words the prosecutor said to the jury at Coffey's trial. I couldn't help it, John Coffey said, holding the murdered, violated girls naked in his arms. The tears began to pour down his cheeks again. I tried to take it back, but it was too late. Boy, you are under arrest for murder, McGee said, and then he spit in John Coffey's face. The jury was out 45 minutes. Just about time enough to eat a little lunch of their own. I wonder they had any stomach for it. 5. I think you know I didn't find all that out during one hot October afternoon in the soon-to-be defunct prison library, from one set of old newspapers stacked in a pair of Pomona orange crates, but I learned enough to make it hard for me to sleep that night. When my wife got up at 2 in the morning and found me sitting in the kitchen, drinking buttermilk and smoking home-rolled bugler, she asked me what was wrong, and I lied to her for one of the few times in the long course of our marriage. I said I'd had another run-in with Percy Wetmore. I had, of course, but that wasn't the reason she'd found me sitting up late. I was usually able to leave Percy at the office. Well, forget that rotten apple and come on back to bed, she said. I've got something that'll help you sleep, and you can have all you want. That sounds good, but I think we'd better not, I said. I've got a little something wrong with my waterworks, and wouldn't want to pass it on to you. She raised an eyebrow. Waterworks, huh, she said. I guess you must have taken up with the wrong street corner girl the last time you were in Baton Rouge. I've never been in Baton Rouge and never so much as touched a street corner girl, and we both knew it. It's just a plain old urinary infection, I said. My mother used to say boys got them from taking a leak when the north wind was blowing. Your mother also used to stay in all day if she spilled the salt, my wife said. Dr. Sadler. No, sir, I said, raising my hand. He'll want me to take sulfa, and I'll be throwing up in every corner of my office by the end of the week. It'll run its course, but in the meantime, I guess we best stay out of the playground. She kissed my forehead right over my left eyebrow, which always gives me the prickles, as Janice well knew. Poor baby. As if that awful Percy Wetmore wasn't enough. Come to bed soon. I did, but before I did, I stepped out onto the back porch to empty out, and checked the wind direction with a wet thumb before I did. What our parents tell us when we are small seldom goes ignored, no matter how foolish it may be. Peeing outdoors is one joy of country living the poets never quite got around to, but it was no joy that night. The water coming out of me burned like a line of lit coal oil. Yet I thought it had been a little worse that afternoon, and knew it had been worse the 2 or 3 days before. I had hopes that maybe I had started to mend. Never was a hope more ill-founded. No one had told me that sometimes a bug that gets up inside there, where it's warm and wet, can take a day or 2 off to rest before coming on strong again. I would have been surprised to know it. I would have been even more surprised to know that, in another 15 or 20 years, there would be pills you could take that would smack that sort of infection out of your system in record time, and while those pills might make you feel a little sick at your stomach or loose in your bowels, they almost never made you vomit the way Dr. Sadler's sulfa pills did. Back in 32, there wasn't much you could do but wait, and try to ignore that feeling that someone had spilled coal oil inside your works and then touched a match to it.